Good morning. It's an exciting time for us at WatchGuard. Hopefully you've seen some of the news coming out about WatchGuard. We have developments on all fronts. We have the new Firebox T series, which we'll cover today. We also have exciting news from the Panda acquisition. So stay tuned for future sessions on the Panda acquisition and what that means for you at WatchGuard. But today we want to go ahead and cover the new Firebox T series. So let's go ahead and jump right in. And as Wendy mentioned, if you have any questions, feel free to submit them in the questions pane and we will address those at the end. So it's certainly been an interesting time in information security. I came across a meme actually. I forgot to include that said, "Oh, good news with COVID, you probably can have some time off." Now, as most of you are in information security, it's been completely the opposite, as you probably are all too familiar with. So as we look at some of the market trends, a part of that is kind of shifted or kind of developed by COVID. But as we look at some of the industry trends that are going on right now, we see more and more people going to the cloud with Office 365, where they're hosting their own applications in their own data centers. So really it's about a dynamic path selection to ensure that reliable service, and that is delivered through our SD-WAN. So I know a number of you might have been using our multi-WAN functionality, and we've simply taken that and extended the services on there. So now we're looking at packet loss, latency, and jitter, all three of those to determine which path is the right way. And just like our GPS calculators, Google Maps, if you say I want to get to downtown, it figures out the best route based on traffic. And the same thing with SD-WAN. Now a big one for me, having 3 children at home, 2 of them teenagers during this time and still trying to work over our one ISP connection, is traffic management to be able to prioritize those business critical applications. So as we look at things such as YouTube, it's going to try to get up to 4K, 8K videos, and if YouTube is started at that time that all that available or all that bandwidth is available, it's going to go ahead and put you at the 4K. And it's going to try to do that. So with traffic management, previously we've only looked at traffic management as being able to allow or deny certain traffic types. And that is a signature-based solution, so it is, we are constantly adding to that. For instance, if you didn't want Pokemon Go in your network, you can actually stop that. And we are just delivering those additional applications as well. But as we look at traffic management, we can look at things such as streaming media. We can look at other bandwidth-intensive applications and make sure they're not monopolizing the network. And together with QoS, quality of service, we can go ahead and create an optimal traffic management plan for our network. And if you haven't seen that, feel free to check out our YouTube channel on traffic management. We also have a zero-touch deployment to save that install time. Now, if you're looking at rolling out, we have a number of, obviously, remote workers in this time that really don't have any security at their home. So if you're looking at rolling out security, good news, you can ship that Firebox directly to, maybe it's your C-level board. They can plug it in and they can be up and going with rapid deploy. And then ultimately, to wrap up everything and to have that visibility into what our traffic looks like, we have that cloud visibility to quickly diagnose those issues. Hopefully you guys are running WatchGuard Cloud Visibility, and just as a recap, we have for years now we've had our visibility tool that we've called Dimension that would be on-premise either in a VMware or a Hyper-V environment. We also provide the ability to do it hosted in your private cloud. But now we can actually take that into WatchGuard Cloud, and if you have basic security, you get 1 day of data retention. If you have 30 days of data retention, if you have total security, you have 30 days of data retention with additional retention packs available for purchase. But in that 30 days, you're going to see who VPN'd in, where that traffic was going. So as we look at a dispersed workforce, obviously visibility is a big component. Now, just to recap on there, we have some exciting things coming with WatchGuard Cloud as well. Today we can actually upgrade those fireboxes through WatchGuard Cloud. But as we look at this screen, this is our WatchGuard Cloud visibility. We can see there that we have our tree views. Under Acme Manufacturing, we have our state here and our fireboxes under here. Now what we can do is go ahead and automatically update the firmware right from here as well, device firmware. And as I mentioned, we can go all the way to 30 days of data retention, see what happened 28 days ago. If your boss says, I tried to get into a Zoom meeting, not that any of us have had issues with Zoom lately or GoToMeeting, but you can see exactly what went on that network. So again, great component for network security to have that visibility into your network. Now, as we look at encrypted malware, and if you've been to one of my sessions, either live boot camps over the last year, I've really been trying to focus more on getting you guys aware of what's actually going on behind the scenes with HTTPS. Now, a number of you realize that we need to be inspecting HTTPS, and again, I'm going to keep reminding you as network administrators, system admins, make sure that you have SSL inspection on the docket for the future, if you don't already. Hopefully you do. So as we look at the rise in malware using encryption, it really shows the importance of network traffic inspection. And if you recall, WatchGuard has been providing this functionality for years now, that we can go ahead and set up a full HTTPS inspection so that we can find out if the bad guys are trying to deliver payloads over the HTTPS. So we can see here, we can see more than half of the top 1 million sites are using HTTPS, and so the bad guys again are using that channel to hide their malicious payload, either as a website that people go to visit, or they're dropping in that payload as well. So malware is rampant. Hopefully, we are seeing things like CryptoLocker dying off. But as we look at the Firebox specifically, we have a number of services, as you may well be aware. We have, first and foremost, the Gateway Antivirus. So that is a signature-based solution, and that has been working extremely well. Now, when we look at some of the malicious payloads over there, about a year ago or so, we introduced a new service called Intelligent AV. That is through industry leader Cylance as our engine for that. And when we talk about Intelligent AV, it's not a signature-based solution. So antivirus is going to be your traditional signature-based solution. But as we're seeing out there, the threats are morphing. The signatures aren't able to keep up enough. So that's really where we introduced the Intelligent AV. Now you can see there we blocked over 1.2 million malware attacks by Intelligent AV in Q4 of 2019. The one problem is that traditionally Intelligent AV hasn't been available on the tabletop boxes, the T-series models. So as we look at then Intelligent AV, if that were to somehow a file were to pass Intelligent AV, then it would go into APT blocker, which is our sandbox environment. 66% of malware was 0-day. Over 10 million malware attacks blocked by APT blocker in Q4. Now, hopefully you guys are all aware of our Secplicity blog, where you can actually go and see their security landscape, and you can look at how those industry trends are shifting. As an example, from the beginning of 2019 all the way now to 2020, we can see that those are shifting into more 0-day attacks. And then ultimately, I touched a little bit on this already. We have remote work due to COVID-19. Now, as we're all aware, that change happened very suddenly, right? We didn't have a way to plan that, both from a security system side, all fronts, we didn't have proper planning on there. So we've seen a massive shift to that remote work, and a lot of times that we don't have the budgets, our budgets are dwindling. So how can we address that security, right? The other thing is that we have wide open access to corporate resources. Now, you might have seen some of our other Firebyte sessions. We actually offered 120 days of Authpoint, which is our MFA, multi-factor authentication component, and how you can secure, for instance, remote access through VPNs. I have a whole series on Firebytes on using Ike v2. We also have the SSL client, and then we have a premium NCP client. I've been hearing a lot from people, how can we set up our VPN client to connect before logon? You could do that through a premium NCP client. You can also do that through Ike v2, which does require Active Directory and an additional NPS network policy server. So if you want to check those out, feel free to check out our YouTube site at youtube.com/WatchGuardNW. But in there, we have a lot of resources about how to support that remote work. Again, wide open access to corporate resources, no security defenses in a home network. Most of us, most of our employees, unfortunately, have a Netgear router or some other router that has basically no security, and people are accessing those remote shares from corporate. So you might want to go ahead and say, or look at planning at shipping fireboxes to maybe your C-level board, and using technologies such as Rapid Deploy, you can easily set those up. And unfortunately, malicious actors are exploiting the crisis even more that we're in. So what can we do about it? Introducing WatchGuard Tabletops, the new Tabletop series. So previously, WatchGuard Tabletop UTM. Now, interestingly enough, I've heard people say, oh, well, the case is plastic. On some of the series, it feels cheap. Now, that is also because it has Wi-Fi in there. And if you want to learn how to kill Wi-Fi signal, just wrap it in chicken wire. That's going to kill it faster than anything else. And it's really about that metal enclosure. So the Tabletop series, the ones that do have wireless are plastic for wireless options. We'll cover which ones are plastic and metal. But the UTM, Unified Threat Management, these are the features that are supported. So we have Rapid Deploy. And again, that is the functionality of being able to ship out a box to a site. You plug it in, you can have instant directions or just have directions on there. They plug it in, and then you would have your network schematics on there, what to do. And as soon as that Firebox comes online, it reaches out to WatchGuard Corporate and says, do you want me to be centrally managed by this organization? And with Rapid Deploy, you can have it be centrally managed, come into your environment. We also have PoE Plus to power devices. So as we're looking at more, I have a VoIP phone in my office, maybe security cameras. We can power all that through our VoIP, and certainly our WatchGuard access points as well. We talked about a little bit about visibility in WatchGuard Cloud. So again, with Basic, you get 1 day of data retention. With Total Security, you get 30 days of data retention in WatchGuard Cloud. Now, some of those models, and we'll cover that more in depth, they do have Wi-Fi 802.11ac Wi-Fi integration available as well. We have our software-defined wide area network, SD-WAN, and then a Total Security as well. So again, SD-WAN is going to be that dynamic path selection for packet loss, latency, and jitter, as we look at the making those informed decisions about which line to use. Now, as you can see here, we actually added 2 new features that people have been asking for on the Tabletop series. So that would be the Access Portal. So again, the Access Portal is going to allow you to remote or hit the web page of your firewall. And then from there, you can spin up either bookmarks, or you can actually use RDP or SSH from there. I do believe I have a Firebytes session covering that if you're interested. And then we have the Intelligent AV, and that, again, is the important component of the security as we looked at all those malicious threats coming in. We're going to be able to cover that on Intelligent AV. So just to recap, so we have our Firebox T40 T40-W, which means our wireless model. Now this one we do recommend up to 5 users. It does support Rapid Deploy, WatchGuard Cloud, it has SD-WAN and Wi-Fi. Now as we look at our spec sheet here, we're looking at 150 megabits per second as a UTM full scan. So we did change how we address our speed data sheets. So this new speed on here indicates our full scan as well. So if you're looking at, for instance, our old models, that was a partial scan. Now we're doing a full scan because we have the horsepower in these boxes to support it. We have a 510 megabits per second. That's a firewall. And you'll notice this new number here. This is IMIX. That's internet mix of numbers. So what that is going to indicate is more of a real world indication on speed of what that firewall can handle for you. We have a 485 megabits per second for a VPN, and then HTTPS with IPS support 50 megabits per second. Now, as we look at the back here, we have 3 to 4 times faster than the T15. Now, we're not end-of-lifing or end-of-sailing the T15, but just know that this is quite a bit more powerful. We have our WAN ports. Now, those of you that are familiar with WatchGuard, you know that we can set up any one of these ports. So even though we only have one WAN port available as an indication, we can set up these two as well for WAN to use in our SD-WAN topology. We have here USB for diagnostics or to power other devices, or if you wanted to use our USB cell modem as well from there. Now we have our Firebox T40 and our T40-W. This is supported, we recommend this up to 20 users. Now keep in mind, as with our recommendations, that's going to differ or change whether you're looking at an engineering firm of 40 users or 20 users, or you're looking at someone that's just using the web through a web browser. So if someone's uploading to Dropbox, engineering, CAD files, etc., they're going to be a little bit more of a taxing user, if you will. So that recommendation might not hold up all the way. But certainly you can reach out to your local sales engineer. If that's me, we can have that discussion. And just as a reminder, WatchGuard does not sell direct. We only sell through our channel. So if you need to know where to buy that, you can actually look at our partner finder on our webpage. So getting back to the top to agenda, we have our access portal. We have a PoE Plus port on this one. And we're looking at 300 megabits per second as a UTM full scan on the T40. We also have a 1 gigabit per second firewall IMX numbers. And then on our VPN, we're looking at 880 megabits per second. HTTPS with IPS is 92 megabits per second. Now, keep in mind that HTTPS with IPS, that's meaning that we are doing our full HTTPS inspection. And if you're not familiar with how to do that, simply review our Firebyte session on that. But you will take that certificate from your firewall and deploy it to all your devices so that you can establish that trust relationship. There is no certificate that you can buy that would just create that trusted environment for you. You have to either create a certificate signing request against your certificate authority, or you can just take the Firebox certificate and distribute that out to all your endpoints. This one is two times faster than the T35 with 300 megabits per second as a UTM full scan, 1 gig firewall IMX, 880 megabits per second, 92 megabits per second with HTTPS. Now you can see here we have our PoE Plus port, and then we have our LAN ports here as well. Now if you want, you can actually bridge these connections. If you're talking about a home network that maybe you don't want each of these to be independently on their independent zones, you can just bridge these so they're all the same network. Now, the Firebox T80, this one has an exciting surprise, so make sure you're paying attention for this one. So as we look at our throughput speeds, obviously we are recommending this up to 50 users. We have Intelligent AV, an access portal, and 2 PoE Plus ports. Now that's not the exciting surprise, so stay tuned on that. We have a 630 megabits per second for a UTM full scan. 1.3 as a gigabits per second for firewall IMX numbers, VPN speeds. Again, extremely critical to you guys with dispersed workplaces or workforce out there. 1.4 gigabits per second. Now, just as a quick tip as well for your mobile user VPN licenses or your software, just know your SSL VPN, that's going to provide a little bit more stability. If you're in a network that is blocking IPsec traffic, that might be the way to go. However, if you want faster throughputs, look at using Ike v2 as your VPN client. And then we have our 356 megabits per second with HTTPS and IPS. So as I mentioned, we have an exciting surprise. Let's go ahead and dive right in. Now, you might see this little box right here and think to yourself, oh, what is that? Great question. Glad you asked. So that is a module that is available with SFP Plus. Now, one of the, I'll touch on that. That is a slightly different module than our 4600s and our 5600 higher line, but you do have additional modules as well that you can put in there for additional copper ports. And the other exciting surprise is it has an LTE module that is on the roadmap. So that one has the hardware right now. We are just working on the code to be able to support it, that you can go ahead and plug a SIM card directly in there and you would have your cell communication as a backup. Now we do have 2 PoE Plus ports on there that you can see. And we have 630 megabits per second as a UTM, a full scan, firewall IMX of 1.32 gigabits per second. VPN 1.4 gigabits per second, and then HTTPS inspection of 356 on that one. So as we look at kind of an overview of those new models here, we have 3 new tabletop models. We have the T20 has 5 ports, T80 would have 8. Intelligent AV is not available on the T20 or the access portal, but T40 and T80 does have the access portal. So again, these slides will be made available, and we'll post this on our YouTube channel. We have a Wi-Fi option on our T20 or T40. The T80 does not have the Wi-Fi because it's a metal enclosure. This one has a metal base but plastic top, and no expansion modules for the T20 or T40, but the T80 does. Now, one thing I like, and I've heard a request from some of you in the past on it, why are we sending out boxes that maybe have 3 or 4 different power supply? So our T40 T80 has a regional SKU, and it cuts down the waste. So again, we're working towards becoming more green as a company. This is a great way to do that. The T20 has a universal power cord with blades, and it doesn't have any PoE on there. So just an overview on the clientless VPN. So obviously we can't just say, hey, this access portal is available for 1,000 of your users. So we do have recommended session counts for that. So again, this is a picture of our clientless VPN. You can just click on RDP and it's going to launch that RDP session. It does support single sign-on to internal applications and supports RDP and SSH for convenient access in the browser. So in case you're not familiar with what RDP is, that is a remote desktop protocol. It does use transport layer security for encrypted sessions. No client is required on there. There are some limitations on that since there's no client that's installed. So just be aware of that. But the WatchGuard model T40 does have a max session of 10 RDP sessions. T80 has 15, and then we are shifting our M270 to 20 sessions as well. That one is not enforced, but your mileage may vary on what you're actually looking at with doing with your access portal. So some common questions I've heard actually, is the T80 module the same as the Firebox M network modules? No, it's not. Slightly different model, cannot be interchanged, but just make sure to check out our webpage on the T80 to see which ones are available. Which IPS and gateway antivirus signature sets are used on these models? All tabletops use the Enterprise Gateway Antivirus signature set. The T20 uses the enhanced IPS, roughly 4,000 signatures on there, and the T40 T80 use the full set. Now, just to recap on what intrusion prevention signatures do, if you're familiar with your products, software products on your individual laptops, maybe you're looking at Flash or Adobe products, Adobe Flash or Java, those oftentimes have vulnerabilities that are announced and will require people to update their software to address those vulnerabilities. Now, some of you, I've talked to some of you and you say, oh, my users are responsible for my updates. And if that's the case, the updates probably aren't happening as fast as they should, in which case the firewall is actually stepping up to address those vulnerabilities through IPS. And sometimes I've heard people say, oh, I'm on a Mac, no need to be worried. That's not entirely true. If I was a bad guy, I would certainly be looking at software such as Adobe Reader that is both present on Mac and Windows to address those vulnerabilities, or to look at those vulnerabilities if I was a bad guy to hack or exploit those. So just make sure that you're aware of what IPS is and the value of IPS. And then will the T35R, so that is our ruggedized. So if you're looking at putting out, maybe Jody in Colorado is looking at putting out a firebox in the middle of a field that has a more rugged environment, the T35 is perfect for that, or perhaps a traffic pedestal. So that one will remain as a rugged model suitable for harsh industrial or outdoor environments. Now, as we look at this, let me go ahead and turn my camera off so you guys can see all this. We have throughput specs. We have our, again, it's just highlighting or putting an overview. We've gone through a number of these before, but just make sure as you're looking at comparing us maybe to another firewall vendor, We have this UDP 1518 byte. This is how everyone else is playing with the data sheets. So that's why this number is there. Now, if you're looking at, for instance, a T20 and maybe you have a gig circuit, this is not, unfortunately, what you will experience in a real world environment. That is where this IMIX number comes in on, right? So just make sure that you're aware that IMIX is internet mix of real numbers. And all testing is based on multiple port pairs, right? So IMIX is a mix of 40 bytes, 576 bytes, and 1500 byte traffic on there. And then as you can see here, HTTPS throughput is measured with TLS 1.2, AES 256, and SHA 256. So some additional specs on the licensing side. We have the T20, the recommended users. Again, this isn't enforced. So a lot of you might be familiar with my history with WatchGuard. And that was at a school district. I was, at that point, had one of the 800 series fireboxes. And we looked at rolling BYOD. And if you're looking at an environment that can expand, WatchGuard's perfect for that because we don't have any hard limits on our recommended users. So again, your network can grow, or maybe you're looking at having an environment where you have 20% growth of your network users in one day. The Firebox can simply flex for that. So T20, we have 5 recommended users, 10 branch office VPN, and then 10 mobile VPN. So these are not, these are independent of one another. So you can have 10 branch office VPNs and 10 mobile user VPNs. Now with that 10 mobile user VPN, that does include SSL as well as IKE v2 under that number there. TDR light host sensor, so that's our threat detect and response, where we can put software on an individual laptop to be able to protect against ransomware. That is a TDR there. And then we have our WSM licenses for WatchGuard System Manager, and then how much VLAN supports here. So if you're not familiar with our WatchGuard appliance sizing tool, it's available on our website. All you need is to put in a number of users. If you wanted, you could say, what would you recommend for a 1 gig Ethernet, branch office VPNs, and see our solution, and it'll give you what recommended appliance is there. And so these tools have all been updated with our latest tabletop series. And then just to recap, although today we're not seeing any additional end of sale, end of life announcements, but just make sure, or so you're aware, we do have a website that does include our end of sale, end of life product milestones here, and you can see that on our website. So just be aware of that if that is something of interest to you. So thank you for attending this Firebite session. As Wendy mentioned, we're going to open it up now to any questions that you might have, where you have about 2 minutes left of this, and I do want to be cognizant and respectful of your time. But there's a QR code. Feel free to scan it with your phone. Go into our survey. Again, we look at this probably multiple times a month, Wendy and I, and come up with what our Firebite's future looks like. So you're a part of shifting or shaping what that future looks like on Firebites.